Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to National Graduate Week. It's fantastic to see so many of you joining today for this talk from ECITB about green careers and engineering. My name's Jake. I'm going to be hosting, which means I'm just going to be checking the chat for your questions and trying to make sure everything runs smoothly. But it's probably worth me introducing the ECITB team.
Good morning, I'm Carol Sinclair. I'm the Net Zero Project Manager for the Engineering Construction Industry Training Board. Kes.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kessington Onalo, and I am supporting the ECITB on secondment from industry as a Net Zero Technical Advisor.
Hi everybody, I'm Isabel Pouncey. I don't work with the ECITB, but I'm here as a guest panelist today. I've got a background as a geologist in the oil and gas industry, but I've also been project leader for decommissioning projects, and I'm now transitioning into the energy transition.
Fantastic, thank you. Right. Sorry, Jake.
Microphone. There's always going to be one. Like I said before we kicked off, there's going to be loads of time for questions as well. So if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be reading them as well, and all of the panelists will try to as well. And we'll get around to answering your questions when we can. Over to you, Carol.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jake. So I'm going to speak to you for a little while about the engineering and construction industry, why it's so important to the British economy, why it's critical to a net zero future. Kes and Isabel will also share their insights and their journey into net zero and careers in the engineering construction industry. So we look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you. So please enter your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them either as we go along or at the end of the session. So engineering construction, what is that? What does it mean? So the ECITB, we work with government, with engineering construction companies, training providers, educational bodies. So we've got a role to attract, qualify, develop the people that work in the engineering construction industry in a whole range of disciplines, from supervisor through to senior executives running multinational companies. So, but in short, we're here to make sure that the workers have the right skills to be able to do their job. Sounds simple, but engineering construction workers have very specific and a high level of skill needs. So, engineering construction, what on earth is it? Well, goodness, it is the cornerstone of Britain's energy and process industries. So our engineering construction companies that work with us, they design, they engineer, construct and decommission some of the biggest infrastructure projects in the country and overseas, and they're central to delivering net zero. Engineering construction, we operate across the oil and gas, nuclear, renewable sectors, as well as the major processing industries. So chemicals, pharmaceuticals, food processing, water and waste treatment. So, a real cross section, but the skills that we have are transferable across that entire sector. So our latest research shows that around 190,000 people are directly supported by engineering construction and their employment. But we'll have a chat through what that means in the different sectors that we have for the engineering construction industry. So some of the sectors, they might be a bit surprising. So first up, say renewables. They produce energy using the Earth's natural resources like wind, wave, biomass. Energy from new renewables, it's clean, affordable, reliable. The pharmaceuticals industry, that provides vital drugs and medicines for the pharmaceutical sector. And given the last couple of years, I suppose we're all very clear about how important that is to our country. Chemicals, a highly diverse range of chemicals that are produced in the UK and impacts on every aspect of our daily lives. So, for example, the 3D print market, it relies heavily on the UK chemical industry. Then food and drinks, so that is the largest manufacturing industry in the UK. It's bigger than the automotive and aerospace industries combined. So, you know, producing everything from beers to biscuits. The power industry, so, you know, our power stations, our turbines that generate electricity. Oil and gas, so, you know, supporting ongoing operations, repair, maintenance, the carbon reduction in production, as well as decommissioning of assets that Isabel mentioned at the beginning of our presentation. But that sector enables the utilisation of materials for our manufacturing industries, for making everything from smartphones and tablets to keeping our houses warm. And the industry is supporting a transition to a low carbon future. The nuclear industry, that provides more than 20% of their country's electricity. So it's, again, a reliable and low carbon energy source. And then also you'll see there the water industry, and that provides our drinking water, our wastewater services, sewerage treatment, so everything, you know, services to our houses, commercial units, industrial sectors. So I hope that gives you a wee bit of a flavour of the engineering construction industry and how much that industry is involved in the journey to net zero. So you can see here a selection of options and careers, you know, from technical right through to professional engineering. On this slide. So today's graduate engineers, they perform a variety of different tasks and roles, from drawing complex designs, making presentations to a board of directors, even operating on industrial sites across the board, or in 2 or 3 years' time, sitting at a presentation like this, speaking to graduates and encouraging other people to come and join the sector that you're very proud to work in. So engineers are in great demand. The ECITB forecasts that about 25,000 additional workers are going to be needed for major projects, including those required to meet net zero. So those extra 25,000 workers are going to be needed between, you know, now and 2026. So, you know, a huge task ahead. UK engineering standards are highly regarded throughout the world. They show that our engineers have achieved a benchmark of level of competence, and as such are respected and well sought after. So there's lots of different routes into engineering and related careers coming out of engineering as well, such as project management. You just need to be curious. So on this slide, you can see a selection of technical roles required to deliver the core activities of engineering construction. So you can see chemical engineers, they're driving efficiency in production and transportation of vital materials. We've got subsea engineers, so they're working to design and install the infrastructure around Great Britain's waters to support offshore renewables and the oil and gas industry. Structural engineers analysing and designing for new build, conversion, renovation of infrastructure. So, you know, the work in terms of retrofit for carbon capture, utilisation and storage. Project managers, project engineers, you know, very important for sort of driving all of these programmes ahead. And of course, none of that happens without all the range of business support services that sit behind that facilitate and enable. So the logistics, the legal, the accountancy, HR, corporate affairs, business development. So Vincent, I see you've got a question there about, do you need an engineering degree? Absolutely not. Our employers will be looking for a range of new graduates in a range of disciplines to support the industry going forward. So we've seen requests from employers for graduates development programs increase significantly in the last 12 months as businesses recover from COVID-19 and they're fully engaging in that journey to net zero. So looking ahead to net zero, we know that many engineering and construction professionals work on superstructures ranging from wind farms to nuclear power stations, and we're helping to tackle climate change by designing and installing new energy solutions. It's so important that we can all help to build that sustainable industry. I see there's a couple of questions coming in on the Q&A about net zero, and we'll maybe pick those up at the end. But there's a lot of work to be done to meet net zero, and we really need to be project managing and collaborating like we've never done before, and really investing in new technologies to be able to facilitate us taking that forward. So, energy transition is happening. It's essential to the UK workforce. It's essential to our planet. But we need to make sure our workforce have the correct skills for net zero to take advantage of the jobs that will be created and the new projects and initiatives. And ECITB is working with employers, training providers and government to ensure that the engineering construction workforce has the skills for today and for the energy jobs in the future. So within engineering construction, that means we have to make sure we have the technical skills to deliver on the government's clear commitments to decarbonise existing industry, build new hydrogen, nuclear, carbon capture, storage facilities, as well as that project management capability. So yeah, working more collaboratively in a connected way and really challenging that status quo. So ECITB, we're one of the voices are taking things forward on that path to net zero, and we're part of the UK government's Green Jobs Delivery Group. So that's looking at the workforce and skills requirements to support energy transition. And as well as supporting that task force, the ECITB is working on a programme to identify and address the required engineering skills for net zero. So Kes is working very closely with me and ECITB on looking at that. And we've also launched an energy transition leadership programme targeted at up-and-coming engineers and project leaders to help them steer the industry towards its objectives. So I'm just having a quick look at some of the questions that are coming in, and I think we'll be picking those up. So while there are clusters of engineering construction across Great Britain, there are heavier sort of concentrations of engineering construction activity in cluster areas as shown on the map, but engineering construction happens right across the UK as well as globally. So the hotspots of concentrated activity, that's around Grangemouth, with the links to the northeast of Scotland, around Aberdeen and Peterhead. We've got the Teesside and Humber clusters, northwest England at Highnet, South Wales and Southampton, and these form the industrial clusters. So these are the areas of strongest focus for decarbonisation activities in the UK. And there are a range of projects that you can see on this map here that are underway, with the northeast England cluster, Teesside and Humber, and northwest cluster taking the lead. But across each of these clusters, you can see a range of projects that are driving that decarbonisation, including hydrogen production, carbon capture, utilisation and storage, industrial fuel switching, and electrification. So, while there are those heavier areas of concentration activities, engineering construction is happening across GB. And not all the companies providing services for the clusters are actually located in those areas. So, for example, the companies undertaking engineering design procurement, they tend to be based around London and the South East, but providing services across the country and internationally. So it's not just working for GB. We can be working in GB, but contributing to projects all around the world. So some staff travel to sites occasionally, some live locally and work on site regularly, and some are highly mobile, working from site to site on a contract basis. So overall for engineering construction industry, it's a challenging time maintaining operations combined with innovation, technology, engineering, project management to deliver net zero targets and creating the world's first net zero emissions industrial zone by 2040, net zero in Scotland 2045, UK 2050. So overall, engineering construction, it presents a real opportunity to get involved in net zero and implement change. So I'm going to have a look again at some of these questions that have been coming in. Thank you so much for your engagement. But what I'd like to do now is hand over first to Kes and then to Isabel, just to share their backgrounds and their experience of coming into the engineering construction industry. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Carol. Beautiful presentation there, and that summarizes it all on what the engineering construction industry is all about. So for me, my background is in chemical engineering, and I just recently got a master's degree in energy management from Robert Gordon University. So coming into the engineering construction industry, I mean, I'm from Nigeria and I didn't know that's what it's called. I just knew that I'm coming in to work for an EPCI, organization. And yeah, it started for me around identifying and taking opportunities as they come. And for me, that has helped me all through my career journey, being able to identify opportunities that come on board, as the industry evolves, and then um, moving on with those opportunities. And that's not to say I understand, everything about where I want to go. I don't even know what I want to do for myself, but I still I know what I don't want to do. Yeah, and that has been what has helped me in identifying and taking opportunities within the engineering construction industry. So like I said, I started off my career as a subsea engineer back in 2014, not knowing what, and it's a jack, knowing anything about what it all entailed, but just putting myself out there, taking opportunities, and knowing what I didn't want to do. I mean, I've previously been working at a finance institution, and I knew that I didn't belong there, just because of my sheer passion to see technology come alive, and help in real life situations like we have currently on climate change and the drive to net zero. And that's where the engineering construction plays um, a vital role. So long story short, what has helped me in my career has been just the ability to identify opportunities. And currently, like I said, the climate situation is actually presenting opportunities for people to come on board into the industry and put in the ideas and make things work. Engineering is just more about knowledge, know-how, cooperation, and of course, people with fresh ambitions, striving to make the world a better place. So that's me, my story. And just before I pass it on to Isabel, I'll just quickly add that when I say taking opportunities, most times those opportunities don't come in the grandeur and glory that it presents, right? You would have to take the risk to go through those challenges, and of course, through the journey, then you'll be able to extract the juice and the sweetness out of those career choices that you have made. So I will pass it on to Isabel to also give her perspective and her story.
Thanks, Kes. Just checking you can hear me loud and clear. Yeah, great. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Isabel. So I've got a really different entry into this from Kes. I don't have an engineering degree or even an engineering background. I trained as a geologist at university. So I did my undergraduate in Manchester. I chose geology because I found it really interesting. And then I ended up doing a Master's of Petroleum Geoscience up in Aberdeen. And I made that choice because the rocks that I was most interested in happened to be linked to the oil and gas industry. So I got really lucky that my geological passion led me to a vocational career, and I went to work for an oil and gas operator. So there, my job was to be a geologist, so looking for oil and gas, mainly off the west coast of Africa. But there was a lot of work, crosswork with engineers. So essentially all your geological ideas, they just feed into huge engineering projects. So you have to think about how the wells are going to be drilled. You have to think about the logistics of building rigs, of shipping and floating and production storage vessels. So a huge amount of work with engineers. That was when I first started learning about it. I then did a 1-year secondment in my company. I worked for, it was CNR, Canadian Natural Resources, but in the international division, so in Aberdeen. And I did a 1-year secondment to the decommissioning department. I was a project lead overseeing the decommissioning of the Ninian North platform. So that's an a huge engineering project. And it's not construction, it's deconstruction. So the challenge was, how do you safely, efficiently take apart this rig? And the part of the project that I was working on was preparing the jacket for removal. So if you don't know what the jacket means, that's the metal legs that a rig stands on. The bit you can see above the sea is called the top sides. That had already been removed the year before. So I was responsible for ensuring we were ready the following year to remove these legs. So that involved a 3-week offshore vessel campaign. So went out, we worked with contractor Allseas. They have these enormous construction vessels. So we went out there for 3 weeks and we were using subsea robots, so ROVs, to cut through the metal legs. And we were also doing a lot of welding above water to weld on lifting points so that an even bigger boat could come back the following year and hoist this thing out the water. So that was a fantastic project and an example of a non-engineer getting involved in engineering. So for any questions on, do I need a background in engineering? No, not at all. I think the real skills you need are an ability to recognize your own transferable skills. So I came from geology. So every discipline you work in, every sector, I think the key skill you'll learn is working together, working with other people, because all these projects get achieved in a team. It's never just you working alone. It's about being able to identify the key issues and prioritize. It's about being able to problem solve. And there's a huge amount of transferable skills in things like data analysis as well, whether you're moving from crunching data on rocks, so porosity, permeability, and then suddenly you're crunching numbers for annual budgets. It's all about smart, efficient uses of data. So I left CNR in March of this year because I wanted to then continue my journey and have a greater impact on achieving net zero. So I'm working with Kes at ECITB at the moment, which is a 2-year skills initiative program hosted by Exodus Energy Consultancy. And it's all about getting people from different backgrounds, from different sectors and different levels of experience in to really accelerate their skills and get us all ready to have a major impact on net zero. So that's my introduction.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kes and Isabel. Really appreciate you sharing your stories with us. So just having a look through the Q&As, I'm thinking, there's been a bit of traffic and some questions being answered, and Paul had been asking about what type of work experience do employers look for, and does it depend on the industry? I think, Isabel, you really touched on that well, didn't you? Speaking about those transferable skills. So, I suppose while you're studying or as a graduate, getting a bit of sort of work experience, whether that be a sort of work placement, internship, that all helps in terms of getting that sort of experience and building up networks within the industry. But yes, definitely, it's all about those sort of transferable skills and identifying, where can you demonstrate that teamwork, where can you demonstrate that project management ability, that prioritization. Can
I add something there?
Certainly.
I think there's a key skill set in itself is recognizing your own skills and transferable skills. And I've seen some people are more effective at this than others, and you might call it blowing your own trumpet, but it really is a key skill set, drawing out the essence of the skills you're using on any project. So for example, if you are, I've no idea, designing a part for a steelworks, you might write on your CV, well, I was designing a part for a steelworks, but actually being able to zoom out and think about what were you inputting to. So I was inputting to a a project timeline. I was collating data, analysing data. I was coming forward with strategies, recommendations. I was working with health and safety. So being able to draw out the transferable skills that you've collected and communicate that to potential employers is a really key skill.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and that's coming from an engineering and a technical side, there's always that tendency to always get stuck on not having enough technical skills to get into the industry, and I think, from a graduate perspective, that shouldn't be a border. It's you understanding again the transferable skill. Something just as little as it may sound, as the ability to research and find out information. So in the course of my career also, I've also done things around market analysis, right? And that's having to scrub for data, like what Isabel said, data scrubbing and just carrying out an insight analysis. So it spreads across, not just on the technical side, but on your ability to research and find out information, which is pretty much what we do back in universities. We've written different reports, different research, whatever is called, and have submitted, and that was basically just going into databases and making informed decisions from data you've been able to research. So I guess what I'm just saying is there's the technical bit to it, right? But then there is, more importantly, the soft side of things, the soft skills and the transferable skills that are attached to it, and that should be able to get you into the industry.
Excellent, thank you. So I can see that there's a question from Jamal about the biggest challenges to meeting net zero, and we have got popped a part of response in there through the chat. And I think there are huge challenges, and it's an exciting thing to be part of. So looking at the decarbonisation clusters and the work that's going on there. A tremendous amount of collaboration, research, innovation going on. So ECITB and employers and government, we're all engaging with an organisation, IDRIC, who are running and overseeing a whole range of highly technical engineering, but also people and skills research opportunities, so that we can share the learning across all of the industrial clusters, so that everybody can be moving at pace and moving towards those targets together. So I think really the biggest challenge is sort of driving that agenda forward, that collaborative working, and working in a way that we haven't maybe necessarily worked before, but that's sort of all pushing towards the same agenda. And finding those wins for everybody. So yeah, it's an exciting time ahead, but it's all very important work that needs to happen, and we need to be doing it together collaboratively. So that project management, engineering, technology, all coming together. It's a fantastic opportunity for existing and new workforce. And Shannon's asking a question about artificial intelligence in engineering construction. So artificial intelligence and so goodness. Oh, sorry, Kes, were you? No.
I think everything has a place in engineering construction. Isabel mentioned in her story around having to use subsea ROVs and all of that to carry out inspections and cutting of the jackets in the commissioning. It also plays the same role. For example, you have an offshore wind turbine installed. There are certain platforms that are manned, and there are certain platforms that are unmanned, and that's where artificial intelligence comes in, to be able to extract real-time data, for example, for offshore wind, you would need some level of artificial intelligence and data management and all of that to be able to be able to assess wind speed, environmental conditions, see how the impact of these turbines that are being installed is on offshore wildlife in terms of bird migration and all of that. So there's a huge range of opportunities which artificial intelligence brings into engineering construction. And just even in the manufacturing, we have precision engineering, where you would need to make clean cuts on steel structures and all of that. So that's artificial intelligence playing its course in the whole engineering construction and to meet net zero. So it has a place.
Absolutely. And I would add to that one of the major contributors to emissions so offshore oil and gas and offshore wind farms is going to be maintenance by vessels, diesel run, chugging back and forth. So reducing those maintenance campaigns and those maintenance visits is a potential huge win. So things like artificial intelligence, yes, absolutely, we need more of it. And on maybe a more general sense, coming back to digital skills, we have such a huge glaring gap in our digital skills in the world, but also I think specifically in the UK. We need people who are more data savvy, and that can come in the form of data analytics, artificial intelligence, even just doing our jobs more efficiently. So running coding scripts to automate research, things like that. We need to be getting more efficient, because all the way that we're working, things are just too slow. I've seen the question on, will we meet net zero by 2030? No. The target for Scotland is 45. The target for UK is 2050. We can make that, but there's an extreme risk that we won't. So we really need to be thinking radically and bringing those ideas together. So when I think about themes like artificial intelligence, I immediately think about that's a real opportunity for industry and academia to work together, because that's obviously can be a fairly academic subject. So I think these cross-working bodies on topics like that are going to be really important.
Super, excellent. So hopefully, some good examples there is requested by the question there. I see Noah's asking, would you recommend doing a grad scheme or getting a job straight after graduation? So for me, I would say there's no wrong path. It really is just finding the right path for you. So whether that's a grad scheme or going into another role that has excellent sort of learning and development opportunities. But I don't know if Kes, Isabel, if either of you got any additional thoughts on that.
I mean, I got into industry from somewhat of a grad scheme. I mean, I don't know what's called back in Nigeria, but I mean, it was more of a 2-year structured program to becoming a subsea engineer. And like I said, it's about identifying opportunities of what you want to do, right? And then when those opportunities come, if it comes in via a grad scheme or some more structured specific role, just go in, grab it. The important thing is for you to make a start, and then as you progress in your career, and more opportunities will come your way, and then you'll start having an idea of what exactly you want to do. But I actually don't think you will ever come to that point where you are absolutely satisfied to say this is what I want to do, because opportunities are constantly presenting themselves, and you just have to make the move to start on somewhere.
Excellent. Super. So I see that Ollie's got a question about which are the best employers to look for engineering construction graduate programs. So for me, goodness, I mean, I'll not recommend specific employers or whatever, but well, goodness, I mean, the large employers in engineering construction, it'd be easy enough to find those through the ECITB website, and the companies that we're engaging with. So, you know, the household names and large companies that will be running programs. But I think also another thing that you'd want to be doing is possibly looking at sectors that you're particularly interested in working in. Find possibly the trade associations that are associated with those, and look at their membership, because then you'll be able to find all of those companies that are operating in those different areas. But, you know, within engineering construction, the companies that we work with that are in scope, you know, you've got the likes of your large companies that are working across sectors, your Wood, your Petrofac, Kent, Cavendish, so on. And then, you know, as Kes and Isabel were speaking about, you know, the smaller sort of engineering consultancies as well, that we work with, the likes of Exodus and Stopford and so many others that, you know, Apollo, that we work with. So certainly on the ECITB website, you'll be able to find the companies that we work with. I would also suggest having a look at those employer associations. So, you know, the BASICA, the Engineering Construction Industry Association, Offshore Energy UK, Nuclear Industry Association. You'll be able to find a whole host of employers and links to their websites through there.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, Carol, that
Super.
I know how I was out of, when I was coming out of uni, and okay, it was in a different sphere, it was in geology, there was this notion that there was a hierarchy that, you know, you really wanted to get into these big, for us, it was the oil and gas operators. And so after 7 years at an oil and gas operator and working with other contractors and now doing a completely different role, I'd say that, yeah, those companies are great and they'll give you fantastic opportunities, but other pathways are equally valid and might even give you something more. So if you work somewhere smaller, you'll have more exposure to responsibility more quickly and to top layers of management. You'll probably have more influence, you know, being able to get involved in strategy conversations and things like that. You'll also probably end up wearing a few more hats. So you might end up doing a few more, let's say, disciplines of different bits of engineering. In a larger company, you tend to be more niche, and you do more of a deep dive into that subject. And neither of these are right or wrong, and they might suit different personality types slightly differently. But I also think it's good to just experience wearing different hats, sitting on different sides of the table. So I've sat in an operator now, I've sat in a consultancy, so I've been the client, and I've now been the consultant. So seeing those different roles in the industry is really interesting. And sidestepping in, so I came from oil and gas, you know, project managed an engineering project. You could get in through health and safety, you could get in through environmental, stakeholder management. There are so many routes in, and this notion of a real linear career path is unrealistic, I think, for a lot of people. So any skills you are getting, even if the first job you land, you think this really isn't my dream job, I bet there's so much you can learn from it. Even if it's you learn, I really don't like this, and you can refine your path all the way up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and it is just getting that exposure to a range of different experiences and knowing that there is no right or wrong path. It's just it's your path, you explore it. And as Kes touched on, you know, he's learned as much about what he isn't wanting to do as much as where he does want to be kind of directing his career. So I can see here there's a question from Isla asking about the ECITB scholarships. Now, I would say that that's more of a route for school leavers. So the scholarships would be aimed at that kind of school leaver level. So as a graduate, I'm thinking that probably wouldn't be the most advantageous route of entry into the industry. I can see Megan B is asking, which sector do you think is the most stable to start a career in? And again, I think Isabel's answer there really kind of encapsulated that as well, and that your skills are transferable across any sector, across the sector. It's about finding those sort of understanding your skill set and seeing how that can be applied in a different industry, in a different sector. So, you might think, oh, I'm not keen on going into XYZ industry because it's not got a long future ahead of it. However, what you can do is develop your skills, develop your work experience, understand a bit more about yourself and where you want to be taking your career, and using those skills moving across sectors. So I think, find what works for you, if that helps. And Kimberly's asking about how you choose between a large or small company, and again, it's a different experience, and maybe you want to try and get a bit of exposure for a combination of things to find what's the best fit for you.
Yeah, and also I think there is a feeling when you come out of uni that maybe you think you can really drive your path, but you will just have to see what opportunities come for you. Yeah. You might get your dream job day one. Mm-hmm. Unlikely, or I just think that there is no dream job. It's really about developing yourself continuously. So if the first job you land is not exactly what you want, it's really not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And any skills, if your goal is to work for one of the big, I don't know, however many big ones, let's say the big five, and you start working at a small one, that's great. That's just a stepping stone to get to the big five. Yep. So see it that way, not as the end of the story. Like, it's not that you didn't cut it, it's just that you're on your way.
Exactly. I started mine in a finance institution, like I said, back in Nigeria, and that seems to have been the trend. People come out of with an engineering degree, and I mean there wasn't so much jobs to get people on board, and the bank seems to be like a resting place for people. But then I was just keen and seeking out more opportunities, and just to go back to what Isabel said around people trying to get stuck on getting into then there was the oil and gas industries, the Totals, the Equinors, the BPs, the Shells, and all of that, and kind of expend so much time, trying to get into those, whereas they're actually those smaller organizations that you could just get into and just stand out from somewhere and build that skill and competence, and maybe eventually you would land into the big companies on a more senior role, right? And then you eventually get there if that turns out to be what the future holds for you.
Can I pick up on a question? Was it something like what skills should I put on my CV? And here I would like to state the importance of showing what you do in an extracurricular dimension. I feel that people really don't always see the importance of that, and that companies are genuinely looking to see who you are as a person, that they're wanting you to bring your personality forward as well as your engineering and technical capabilities, and that it's also really useful just to stand out. So, for example, I put on my CV once that I did a skydive, and then I was at a recruitment dinner, and the hiring manager, he read out interesting facts of everybody's CVs, and we had to guess who had done what. And it sounds fairly trivial, but by showing a bit of yourself, by standing out, that is a really great way to build connections with people. They're looking for so much more than just what grades you got, what engineering packages you know. So that is a top tip from me. And also, if you have done any extracurricular work, even if you don't think it's important to your technical abilities, like maybe you've done some charity work, maybe you're in a cycling club and you're the one that's always arranging the cycles, get that in. That shows leadership, that shows empathy. I think you'd be amazed by the range of skills employers are really interested in.
Absolutely, Isabel. And the short internships that people actually embark on are actually things you could pop on your CV, actually, because many times people don't understand that that's actually you doing work. You making a contribution to an organization, howbeit a short term, 3 months, 4 months or thereabout, but it's actually something that you could pop on your CV that is what you've actually done. And then, of course, Carol mentioned about identifying trade associations. There's lots of all of these events going on, especially around net zero, right? And attending those events by itself is you increasing your stakeholder identification, stakeholder management, ability to network and meet people. Those are things you could actually put on your CV, and that stands you out from competition.
Yeah. Excellent. And there's so many, there's some young professional networks out there as well, and engaging with people in other organisations and learn from their experiences as well. And it doesn't stop; it carries on right through your career. Absolutely, yes. I think what you're saying there about just make sure that all those details about that bit of work experience, about that role that you've got within the university association or whatever, it's all in there.
Yeah, and I'm just sort of firing top tips now, sort of penning questions. But I think as well, don't underestimate the visual component of your CV. Hiring managers, they're just humans sitting there with a cup of tea. Okay, what's this PDF? What's this printout showing me? It's okay to have a really clear, compelling, visually appealing CV. I've been on the end of, picking CVs for internships and things like that. We're genuine humans that want to be interested, and huge blocks of text are just really hard to digest and to show your skill set. So I think it's really valuable to put some time in thinking about how you are putting together your CV and making sure it's really clear and concise, and then your skills can really shine through and not just get lost in walls of text.
Yeah, and just to add, and that's coming off my experience on my master's program, right? I think it's just important in terms of building your CV to actually use professional help, and your institutions, your universities have that sect of people who are looking out to help build CVs, right? And I use that. I would say I had a very rough CV, and I had to go through the employability crew at RGU, and they actually did a fantastic job in helping me, providing a template for me to pop on my CV there and just make it very much presentable. And I'm seeing a question from Chris M asking, is LinkedIn a good place to start networking? Absolutely. Right. Yeah, you could stalk people on LinkedIn in a polite way, and I know a number of people who have actually reached out to me on LinkedIn, and just have discussions, and you never could tell, there could be your next doorstep or into your next job or something. So yeah, LinkedIn is absolutely good to network, and of course the industry events that go on in person. Just if it's free to register, just register and go on in there and meet people. Just put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think that really appeals to extroverts. So that's maybe more of a challenge for introverts. But it is so valuable. The most valuable thing you can do is probably just walk around a conference floor chatting to people. You'll learn about entire sectors you didn't know existed. You'll learn about entire sort of supply chains, companies you didn't know existed, as well as meeting those, golden ticket people that can land you your dream job. I think my key insights for that are: get yourself some business cards made. They can be really simple, but that it's probably going to increase your chances of that person getting back to you by about, I'd say, 80%. It shows that you're professional. It's going to get them, they're going to forget your name instantly, probably when you walk away, because they'll be meeting so many people. But later, when they get back from the conference, they'll be emptying their pockets, and they're going to find your business card, and they're going to remember that interesting conversation they had with you. And that's the point that they will probably reach out. So I think that is just such an underestimated small act that can boost your career prospects.
Super, excellent. And of course, LinkedIn as well, in terms of researching companies. Where are you interested in working? Do I like what this company is saying and doing? And preparing for hopefully for interview. Just great for keeping up to date with what's happening. Super.
Carol, I thought we had a great question. Sorry, are you about to do a wrap up?
No, I was going to say we've got like 10 minutes or so. I've got a couple questions written down as well, but if you've got other questions you can go for, then absolutely go for it.
I just saw a question which I thought was really great, which was what's the main challenge that you've faced to get where you are? I think I'll be really candid here and say, for me, it's been my mental health. So that's not always been perfect for me, and that's been a really big challenge. So dealing with that, and also going offshore into risky locations, taking on large amounts of responsibility, that's been a big challenge. And I've been lucky to have really supportive employers. And I'm thrilled that we're now in an age where I can unashamedly just come on this panel and tell you all that. So I think look after yourselves and be aware that employers now, they really should be, and most of them are there to look out for you. So if you're starting your career, everything feels overwhelming, you're worried about joining the workplace and worrying that you have to just work yourself into the ground to impress, don't put yourself first. They'll appreciate that, and be aware of the help that's out there for you.
Absolutely, Isabel, and very much appreciate you being candid and sharing that with us. And you're right. There's been such a change in recent years in being able to be open about that and get the support that's needed, and an employer worth their salt will. So anything
what about
you would
you,
like
Kes,
to
then?
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that. My biggest challenge, I think for me, it's been around trying to take up more opportunities than I could handle.
Yeah.
So even if you want to identify opportunities, I've always been saying yes to so many things, and that again, tilting back towards mental health, that again fast tracks your pace to weary you out. So it's just knowing what limits you have on yourself, identifying the limits, and just knowing when to say, oh, okay, no, I think I've got enough. I need to backtrack a little and just put myself together for a relaunch. Yeah.
It can be really hard, especially we're talking about getting out there to events. There's so much going on. There's always a conference. You get fired constantly with newsletters and things advertised on LinkedIn. And sometimes doing nothing is as valuable as doing the thing. Yep. But it's really, really hard to step away from leaning in and doing as much as you can when your career's, when you're building a career and your career's at stake. But that's a challenge.
Yeah, and I think about being realistic about those expectations that we place in ourselves, because they're not necessarily the expectation that your employer might have of you. But we often place very high expectations on ourselves, and
yeah,
just managing that and being realistic.
And these days, we're finally seeing the welcoming of neurodiversity and the different ways of thinking. I guess also I should touch on being a woman in engineering. That's been challenging. I've had some tricky situations, and it's a changing industry. It's definitely not perfect, but I've been mainly lucky to work with really respectful colleagues. But that occasionally has, there's been a couple of situations where I've had to have a thick skin and have the confidence to stand up for myself, which definitely takes a few years to grow into.
Definitely. You know, as somebody with over 20 years of experience, there are things I look back on now and think, I can't believe I accepted that. Because I certainly wouldn't now. But you're right as well. I think it's the workplace is a different place now, and it's changing. But get involved. If you're out there and you don't like how it is, get involved in the change. Join a women's network. If you're from a minority group and you don't feel like you fit in always, become the change, join the group, because things are changing, but we really need people to get involved and help us change it faster. Absolutely, yes. And ECITB, you know, we've got two groups that we take input from young professionals. So we've got our Innovate group, who are young early career professionals. So they input into ECITB and help us direct our work and our engagement. And we've also got our group that is looking after our thoughts and direction and work that we're taking around that sort of equality, diversity, and inclusion and work in those areas. So, you know, absolutely be part of that change and get engaged.
I've got one more question, but in fact, just before I do, I see Jamal popped a question in the chat asking about like starting salary. I wonder if the answer to that is kind of, it depends on industry and role and location.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of work going on, especially looking at females in the sector about pay transparency. We're so not there yet, but I would say, you know, if I'm going to be truthful, there's a huge range in it, and I'd say you could expect somewhere between 25 to 45,000.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for that, Isabel, and hopefully that's useful for you, Jamal. The last question, we've got a couple minutes just before we wrap up, so I'd be really interested to know, I know we've mentioned about the ECITB website and LinkedIn as well, but if you're a graduate or if you've watched this whole session, what next? What is something you can do next proactively that's going to really help you in your career?
Is that a question to the panelists?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I would, if it was me, I'd be creating a mind map of what are the most influential things I could do. So I think on my mind map, my CV needs to be top notch. I need to identify some priority events I need to attend. Don't attend them all, you're going to burn out. Get those business cards printed ASAP. And absolute top bonus tip on sessions like this, in the chat, put in your full name when you enter your name and put in your university or your company or anything you're affiliated with. I always do that. And every time I do and I ask a question, 99% of times I then get contacted by somebody that was interested by my question, that was impressed that I shared exactly who I was. And that's led in itself to career opportunities, which for me was an untapped gold mine.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and just for me, I know we mentioned about using LinkedIn, and I'm particular about being more strategic around using LinkedIn. Just don't go adding people and don't say, I'm not saying a word, get to add people and do some very good introductions out there, because I know people just send you a friend request and you're like, who's this person from? From where do I know you? So it would be good to have a backstory to your connection request when you send it out there to people, and just get just a few lines, make some very powerful introductions that will get people really interested to talk to you. And for me, that's very important.
Excellent. Thank you. And for me, ECITB, we've been sharing some links in the chat there as next places to go. Would also ask you to use the QR code here, the social media tags. Please engage with us further. So yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. And like I say, we've just wrapped up to the end of the session now. But thank you for those insights as well into next steps, as well as answering all of these questions. Can I just ask on behalf of chat just to say a huge thank you to Isabel, Kes, and Carol for answering these questions, for going through this presentation. It's been really interesting to hear your insights as well as your experience. But like I said, that brings us towards the end of the session now. It is 10 o'clock. And thank you, everyone. We've had loads of people watching, loads of questions as well. Love that engagement. But like I said, that's all from us. So we say cheerio now, and that'll be the end of this session. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all for your engagement.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.